Today we're going to do some, hold on, I'm muting everybody. Today we're going to do some work with the hips. I got some feedback from many of you that yesterday's class was really good for your body. So I have it in the recording. I've already sent it to through two of you. But if anybody else would like it, let me know. I can just kind of send it your way, and it's already up on the internet. So let me know if it's there. Yeah, it's on YouTube. But it made me think, when we're opening up the back body, I think, so much gets neglected back there, and it is a very important thing. So kind of return to those practices whenever you need them. But being, in a different body today than the body we were in yesterday, new things to explore. So we're going to work a little bit with the hips. And, there's this old adage, I don't know where it comes from. I don't necessarily believe it, but there's an adage in the yoga realms that says, the hips are like the storage depot of the body, kind of like where we package up our emotional things and put it in a suitcase and plant it right down in the hip joint. And, I think you can, I've said this before, that I think you can hold things anywhere in your body. I don't think the hips have a corner on the market. But for some reason, that seems to be something that people kind of resonate with. So it must be, at least in part, a reality for a lot of people that the hips kind of hold a lot of stuff. So I think that we're all holding a lot of things right now, and recognizing that, what are your coping mechanisms over this last week of, here in Colorado, we had a big snowstorm, the election, and daylight savings time, all at the same time. And that was a lot of change and a lot of um, unsettlingness for many people. So I'm inviting you to take a look at what you've done in the past week, for both a sense of self-care. How have you cared for yourself? How have you consciously cared for yourself? Have you carved out time to do certain things that increase your well-being? Have you prioritized good eating and good sleeping and good community, all the things, right? Some good movement. Um, and we can recognize that getting rid of pain is not the same thing as healing. When we are learning how to support ourselves, part of that is gaining our capacity to hold pain or whatever it is that you're holding, whatever's kind of getting stored in your hips, but whatever you're holding, emotionally, physically. Part of our healing process is learning how to widen our capacity to hold more. So notice if you've, in this past week, turned toward coping mechanisms that are either distractions or running away from emotional states or kind of ignoring it. And I'm a full supporter of having news fasts. So that's different than just being like, I'm not gonna pay attention to any of the situations that are happening around me, but giving yourself gaps, spaces. So, what have you done in this past week to help yourself and kind of take stock, be honest about coping mechanisms that have been very helpful and adaptive and maybe wise, and maybe some coping mechanisms that haven't been very helpful. Maybe you've been cranky and bit someone's head off. Maybe you're not sleeping at all. Maybe your diet has changed, or you've had a little too much alcohol, or whatever. Fill in the blanks. Okay, so let's come to a comfortable seat for a moment and just kind of sense into how you are. All right, so as you close your eyes and drop your attention and your awareness into your body, this beautiful, beautiful present moment awareness is truly a gift. And hopefully, with your long yoga practice, this skill is cultivated well within you, where just sitting up straight and tall and closing your eyes gives you the cue of, oh, now it's time to sense me and go in. So as you notice what's here, notice the impacts of your strategies of self-care and how they've supported you and helped you through this week. And let's hold some deep gratitude for these skills that you have and your implementation of them. And then also, can we have a moment to recognize maybe some wayward path, maybe an old coping mechanism that isn't serving you very well, but it's comfortable, that maybe you've reached into as well in this past week? And can you hold some grace for yourself? Can you hold a non judgmental space of recognizing all of the ways, the good ways and the hard ways that you're trying to help yourself? It's just that you're trying to help yourself. So let's recognize this deep impulse for self care. Yourself into your breath deeply and fully. Pay attention to how your body feels, how your mind feels, how your heart feels. And where are you storing tension in your body? Where are the places where your emotions and your physical coping strategies, like where is that landing in your body? Can you sense where there might be a place where you need to do some releasing? And if you're finding a place, let's kind of take a mental note that whenever you touch this place in your practice today, really sit with it. Diverge off the path that I'm leading us through if you need to really sit with the places in your body that need some space and some healing. Mm. Our hands together and offer this beautiful mudra of connection, centering of focus. Offer something here for yourself. What is your intention today? Your hands. And let's find our way coming onto our back. All right, so as you lengthen out into your body, I think my kitty cat has been very overwhelmed this week too. She's had a All right, so lie down and see what it feels like to just have some space in your body. Reach your arms overhead and just enjoy this beautiful capacity to rest your body down and also invite space. So as your arms are up overhead, can you reach one side and reach the other side and just notice what the response in your nervous system is, in your mind, in your heart? Just the simple act of a big stretch. What does it do for you? Okay, and then bring your knees into your chest and let's rock. Remember that rocking is one of those primary tools of self-care that we have. If your nervous system feels overloaded, a little bit of rocking can go a long way in soothing you. Hang on to your knees now and do some circling with your knees, where we kind of roll one direction 2 or 3 times. And another direction. And now open up your pelvis here and just feel your knees draw wide. Just feeling that range of motion that's available in your hip sockets. And release your body down, stretch your limbs like a star on the ground. Let's reach into your hands and your feet, maybe roll your wrists and wiggle your fingers. What feels good? And exhale and draw your knees in and pick up your head, a snug hug.
Again, repeating, opening up to a big star on the ground. Exhale, drawing your knees and chest in and up. Relax your head down onto the ground. Put your arms out to the sides, feet on the floor, and let's windshield wiper our knees and just enjoy a little gentle movement for our back. Just a nice, gentle twisting. Pay attention to your breathing. Maybe your head wants to go in opposition of your knees so you get that full left-right movement. And remember that crossing midlines is another way of getting the nervous system to just come online and be centered and grounded. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or in a state where the coping mechanisms are not working for you, you can simply try sitting and just turning your head and looking one direction for about 30 seconds and then turning your head and looking the other direction for 30 seconds. Or even something as simple as this. Just going left and right can be very helpful. Or reach your limbs wide, stretch, roll around in your ankles and your wrists. One more time, knees into your chest, a big hug. And then release your head down. We're going to grab a blanket. All right, so take one blanket and we're going to roll it so that we have a rounded bolster. And we're going to put our pelvis on this. Not right at the top of your pelvis, but kind of lower down on your sacrum so that your pelvis tilts a little bit into a posterior tilt. So we're not lifting to like a bridge, we're rather kind of scooping our pelvis so the pubic bone kind of descends toward the navel. Okay. And then keeping your left foot on the ground, let's bring your right knee out to your right ribs and just hold it there for a moment. Nice and gentle through your pelvis. Let that posterior tilt happen. And just enjoy this opening. So we're not knee to chest, we're knee out to the side a little bit. And then stretch that leg out and repeat it. Draw it in. Stretch that leg all the way out and repeat it. Draw it in. Nice and relaxed here. And then stretch your leg out and just open up the front of the hip a little bit. Heel down onto the ground and breathe into the front of the pelvis. And then bend that knee and return back to that posterior tilting of the pelvis. Feel your belly kind of fall toward your low belly fall toward your navel. So pretty good posterior tilt of the pelvis. Left knee. Instead of hugging your knee straight in toward your chest, out to the side a little bit. Relax your shoulders and your head. Take some good breaths. And then we'll begin to move this leg, straightening it out, and then drawing your knee back up to the outer rib cage. Maybe do 2 or 3 passes, just kind of sensing where is the capacity of my hip today, and how does this hip feel different from the other hip that we just did. All right, and then stretch that leg long on the ground and just enjoy the openness of the hip flexor there for a moment. Breathing deeply. And then we're going to pick up that foot, put your foot onto the ground and find that posterior tilt of the pelvis again. So you want the blanket to, kind of be on the bottom side of your sacrum, not up toward the top of your pelvis. Soles of the feet together, Supta Baddha Konasana. Let your knees fall out and enjoy the simple ease of your pelvis relaxing. Again, notice here if your 2 legs feel very different, if your hip joints, and sometimes our internal perception doesn't match our external action. So do you feel one knee way dropped lower than the other? And then take your hands behind your head so you're not using your core so much and pick up your head with your hands And notice if you're right, you know, if your internal sensing of your legs is true, or if there's only a small bit of difference between the two, but you feel it as a great distance. Or maybe just the opposite. Maybe you feel it as a small separation between the two sides and it actually is big. All right, put your feet back onto the ground, both knees hugging into your chest. Stay on that blanket for a moment. A little bit of rock if you'd like it. Maybe you come into a deeper happy baby pose with a strong posterior tilt to that pelvis. Check in with your back, make sure it's happy in this position. Breathing deeply. All right, and then stretch your feet, put them back down onto the ground, get rid of that blanket. Find your way into a star again, reaching the limbs wide. Exhale, draw your knees into your chest and come down like a Shavasana on the ground for a moment and just notice your hips. Take a deep breath in, a deep breath out. All right, now drag your feet a little bit wider than your mat. Drag your heels up so your knees bend. Internally rotate your knees so your knees are coming toward each other, and press your heels, straighten out your legs. And then drag them in, still in that internal rotation. Once your heels are dragged in, open up your knees, externally rotate and press your heels on the ground, straight legs. And then draw your feet in, knees bend, go back to internal rotation. So just feel, you know, this is actually making my hips cramp a little bit. I did a lot of work already with my hips today, so maybe that's why, or maybe this is making your hips cramp a little bit too, to kind of feel the deep muscles that are involved in internally and externally rotating your hip joints. When we have that heel drag, you know, we're really isolating those actions of internal and external rotation, and just sense the muscles that are in charge. Okay. And then the next time, no matter which movement you're doing, once you get to legs straight, just wobble your legs, internal, external, internal, external. You're just shaking and rocking your legs. Breathing deeply. And then rest for a moment. And notice if that action woke up some things in your hips. All right, let's reach and open up through the body. Draw the knees into the chest and roll to your side. And come up onto your hands and your knees. So as we find some groundedness here, before you start moving into cat-cows, feel the earth. Give your weight with your hands, give your weight with your knees. Feel how connected you are to the ground. Feel a sense of symmetry. Okay, notice how nice it is to be close to the ground. All right, and then start to breathe and move, arching the back, rounding the spine, taking your time to feel your way into the beautiful spinal movements of extension and flexion. You know, we've already done some flexion of the pelvis, so notice as you move here the full range of motion that you have in your hips to go from a posterior tilt to an anterior tilt. And then go ahead and wag your tail. Move around in your body, maybe some circles through your pelvis, maybe some circles through your ribs. So just explore your spine and particularly how that connects to your pelvis. But of course, don't lose sight of your shoulders and your collarbones and your ribs and sternum and your head. You know, so much connects in. And then come down to a child's pose. Drop some deep weight into the hips and walk the hands far out in front of you and feel that extension and length here. Breathe into the sides of your body, open up your ribs. And we're going to come up onto all fours, tuck your tail under like a scared dog, and then drop back into a child's pose and notice what your back and hips feel like. And then come back up, anterior tilt the pelvis, lift the tail all the way to the sky, drop back into a child's pose and notice your back and your hips again. Do each one more time. Coming back up, tuck the tail under, coming back. Notice your back, notice your hips. Back up, anterior tilt the pelvis, dropping back. All right, come back up onto all fours. Wag your tail again, just release any tension in your hips. Reach that arm up in the air, either arm twist your body. Let's enjoy this beautiful twist. Feel your breath. Feel the full kind of fascial, and you know, this pose really stretches a lot of fascia in the back, not just the muscles. So see if you can sense that. Inhale that arm all the way back up. Hand comes down onto the ground. Let's switch sides. Arm up, drop the arm under. Gaze toward the ground. Fill up your breath. Empty your breath. In this way, when we practice, we are gaining capacity. Every time we learn to stay in our body and breathe well and to sense ourselves, we gain that capacity to not run away, to stay present and have a broader sensing, lift that arm up in the air, of our capacity to hold pain, to hold stress, to hold strain. Okay, so getting more resilient. Let's go ahead and lift up into dog pose. Try and just enjoy, oh gosh, it's such a beautiful pose. So feel the deep roots of this posture. Yield and push and reach. See what it feels like to have your head so close to the ground. Can you melt your brain and your head, your mind a little bit? Let go of some of those thoughts and let them just dribble out through the top of your head. Maybe you're pedaling your feet, waking up the backs of your legs a little bit. Full breaths. All right, walk your feet forward, come to Uttanasana, folding deeply. Bend your knees as much as you need. And then when you're ready, inhale for a halfway lift. Maybe your blocks are here for you. Maybe you like to put your hands on your legs. Exhale, folding again. Push into extension. Put your hands on blocks if you have them. Femur bones up and back. Spread the bones of your feet. Feel the deep roots of your feet. Okay. And then just like we did yesterday, bend one knee, maybe even lift your heel up, cross the midline with that knee, and let your other hip lift and draw back. And then switching sides, just kind of getting into some of those outer hip muscles, letting them open up a little bit. It's amazing how much range of motion our pelvis has. You know, we're not stuck. We're never stuck. All this freedom of movement. Even when we're a little restricted, we still have all this freedom of movement. All right, so ground through your feet, bend your knees, and fold again. Relax your skull, let any tension release from your skull. Inhale, rising up, reaching the arms to the sky, feeling that extension. Open up here, maybe lean back a little bit. And as you do so, when you feel that sense of drawing in and opening up, lift the heart. Okay. Remember to stay open as best as you can. Take moments in your day to remember this heart opening space. Let's cactus through your arms and give a good squeeze to the back of your body. Okay. And then reaching up again, open your arms wide and just offer. What can you give out to the world today through this big open heart? And then exhale and fold forward. Halfway lift, extending a little bit longer in your spine. Exhale and bend again. Let's step back to a lunge.
Okay. Right foot is coming in front, left foot is coming behind. All right, so open up through your chest. Start to feel those hip flexors of the back leg open up. And let's bend and straighten the knee. Such a great pose to warm up both the fronts of your legs and the backs of your legs. We've got this beautiful sensation happening in the hamstrings and also in the hip flexors of that back leg, the front of the thigh. How's your breath guiding you? And let's place our back knee on the ground. And once you put it there, maybe draw it back another inch or so. So you have a long extension of those hip flexors. Make sure your front heel is directly underneath your knee instead of letting your knee slide forward of your heel. Hands on blocks, extend upward, push a little bit on the blocks to get that heart to open up again. Root into your feet, and then bring your arms to the sky. Hug into the midline with your front leg so that you're not letting it fall out to the side. Press your whole foot into the ground. Reach and extend upward. And let's grab onto the wrist and find a side body stretch here. And you can instead put your hand on a block if that's more safe and comfortable for your body. Breathing well. And then let's turn this into a twist. Forearm or elbow on your knee, left forearm on your right knee. And then other hand, right hand on your side to help you lift and open. Try not to scrunch your shoulders up and collapse your collarbones. Drop your shoulders down and widen the collarbones. Full breaths here. Coming back to center. Come off of there and come back to child's pose. And just notice the hip flexor on that side softening like a rubber band that you just stretched out. And now it's retreating back to that softer, less tension place. Let your hips relax. When you feel ready, let's bring our left foot in front. Right knee is behind. Lift your knee up off the ground. Find your lunge, extending through your heart. And let's go ahead and bend and straighten the front knee here where we feel our way into that extension and flexion. Such a beautiful way to sense the body. Move with your breath. Round into your lunge. And let's place the back knee on the ground and experiment by maybe lifting your knee and dropping it further back another inch, just to explore, maybe a little deeper than what you originally thought was available in your body. Open up through the heart, hands on blocks, high blocks, so that you can push on them a little bit to lift the heart. Ground into your front foot to support you. We're not collapsing in our lumbar spine. Engage your core. Okay, so a little bit of engagement in your lower belly can be very helpful, so instead of just falling. Okay, either reach the right arm up and over with your hand on the block or grab on with your hand, whatever feels more stable and secure for your body. Breathing deeply. And then coming back up. Feel that extension, we'll find a twist. So right forearm on your left knee or maybe your elbow, other hand on your thigh to help you lift. Hug to the midline, feel that extension in your body and breathe. Okay, deeply opening your psoas muscle here. Let's go ahead and relax back into child's pose again. And remember, how deeply connected your psoas, that deep abdominal muscle, the deepest hip flexor you have, is so integral to the fight or flight response. So if stress has been high in your world, how is this feeling? Can you notice if there's been any wear and tear on or muscle tension kind of living in this part of your body? And let's slide forward onto our belly and come into Sphinx pose. So forearms are on the ground and we extend upward from here, shoulders back, press into the ground a little bit and reach your legs. Full breaths here. All right, and then come down. When you're ready, we're going to take the right forearm and cross it in front of us on the mat and reach back with your left hand to grab your left foot. And you can use a strap if you can't reach. Posterior tilt a teeniest bit, so we're not allowing the pelvis to just relax. We want to reach the tailbone toward the knee, lift the pubic bone toward the navel. Try not to do this by just squeezing your butt cheeks. Make it happen from your core too. Breathing well. Open up your quad. Your head can be down or your head can be picked up, whatever feels good. And remember, there's always an alternative to every posture. Let's come out of there. So I forgot to mention this before the first time, but if this is not good for your body, you can come onto your side and do a quad stretch, the same pose, but just on your side. All right, so now we'll take our left forearm across the mat, reach back and grab your right foot. Stay low with your torso, engage the pelvis and the deep low belly. Tailbone down, pubic bone up. Lengthen through all the fibers of your quads. Is there any place that's, not feeling the stretch that you can give a little more awareness to or a little more extension to feel the stretch? And then relax that. Come up onto all fours. Okay, we're gonna turn your body sideways on your mat and we're gonna take our knees really wide. So frog pose. Take your shins parallel to, if you're on a wood floor, I would double up your mat so that you have some support. But if you're on a carpet like I am on a rug, usually that's enough. But you're gonna have your shins, your feet are on the same line as your knees. So we're not drawing our knees in. And then come down onto your forearms and be very mindful to be gentle in this pose. So I don't want you to go to your extreme position. The more you rock forward, the less intense on your hips. The more you rock your pelvis back, the more intense it will get on your hips. Check in with your knees, your ankles, make sure your hip joints are feeling good, your SI joints are feeling good, that you're not overdoing. And then melt here, just let the inner thighs open up. All right, and then slide your body forward, bring your legs back in line, pick up your feet and windshield wiper your knees. Okay. Come all the way up to a dog pose and feel your body in length. Maybe you want to take your feet hip width, maybe you want to take your feet wider, maybe you want to put your toes together. So just kind of sense what feels good in your body here. And walking your feet forward, a deep fold, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift again. Melting on down. Push off your feet, rising up, reaching the arms, extending open. Let's cactus one more time. Get that upper body to say hi. Maybe press your hands straight out like two walls. You're pushing two walls away. Big breaths. And then release your hands and give them a good shake. All right, so turn sideways on your mat. A nice wide stance. Okay. And we'll turn our right foot out and come into Parsva Konasana. So you've done this pose a million trillion times probably. So just sense in what's available here in my hips today. Can I draw the top of my back thigh back without feeling like I'm tipping the front knee forward? So find your sweet spot in here. And it's very helpful to let your whole pelvis turn a little bit to the right so that there's more room for you to take that femur bone back. All right, so open up that hip as best as you can. Reach into space. find the deep roots of your feet so you're self-supporting. How's the breath? All the way back up. And let's turn our feet the other way. As you come into the side, notice what's available. Try to track your front knee over your heel, knee in line with your middle toes. Feel free to turn your hip a little bit toward that front leg so that the head of the femur bone can draw back. Think less about trying to broaden your pelvis open and more about trying to draw the femur bone back and let the left femur bone nestle into the hip joint. All right, so stretch and lengthen through your side and then root your feet so that there's a lot of support. What muscles are engaging when you press deeply into the ground? And let's come back up and out of there. Turn your feet straight forward for a moment. Let your legs be straight. Find your breathing. Bring your arms out like a star. Just take up a lot of room on the ground. Breathe well. And we're gonna do a series of squatting. We're gonna start with our feet a little bit wider than our hips, and then we're gonna take our feet a little bit wider than that, and then we're gonna take our feet even wider than that. So kind of 3 different positions. We're not starting with our feet hip width apart, a little bit wider, okay? Take a deep breath in. We're gonna keep our hands on our hips or out in front of you or even up, somewhere that's gonna help you stay upright instead of tipping down, okay? So we don't want to drop our torso down, we wanna stay upright. Draw your knees forward, draw your hips back. Squatting down, rising up. Maybe your hands wanna be at your heart. Maybe your hands wanna be up. Kind of experiment. See what allows you to have the fullest expression in this pose. Now notice if you have a knee that's a little cranky, do you tend to lean into one side or the other? Try not to do that. Slow down till you get to the place where like, oh, my knee can handle this, but not anymore. So you know where to rise back from. How's the breath? All right, and then next time you get down here, just stay for a moment. Feel how nice it is to let your legs work, to root your feet, to feel that your hips are capable of flexing. All right, come back up. You can either keep your arms down or your arms wide up. We're going to take our feet a little wider now and turn your toes out. Okay. Try to track your knees and your toes so we're not letting our knees cave in as we do this, and see if you can reach the knees away from you and then draw them back in so that it's not just about the pelvis coming down, but it's about the femur bones moving away from you at the same time. So experiment with that sensation of keeping yourself upright. Put your hands wherever you want them to be. Only go as far down as your body is equally self-supporting. How's your breathing? Make sure you're breathing. Full breaths. All right, on this next one, let's go ahead and come down and stay for a moment. And just feel your femur bones root away. Feel your hip bones draw. So like let a little anterior tilt of the pelvis happen, but still move your femur bones away. Round through the 4 corners of your feet. And then rise back up. Let your thighs rest. And you can, take them and just shake them around if you want. You can be in a standing star, whatever feels good. Last one we'll do a little less of. Nice wide legs. Turn your toes out. Same thing applies. See if you can get the feeling that you're sliding outward on that angle that your knees are going and back in. Sometimes I do this with my hands to help my femur bones move outward and then back inward. Press into your feet. How are the outside edges of your feet? Are they supporting you? How's your breath? Put your arms anywhere you want. And now we're going to do one more and just hold here for a moment. Open up your knees. Draw your knees away. Drop the tail. Lift the chest. Root into the feet. All right, and then relax. Turn your feet forward. Bring the hands down so you're nice and at ease. You can put your hands on blocks if you like. You can put them on the ground. You can put forearms on the blocks or forearms on the ground. Straight legs, feet turned straight or turned in, whichever feels better. A full breath. All right, let's come back to the front of your mat for a dog pose and just enjoy your legs. Let's turn our toes in. So you feel that internal rotation of your thighs. Breathing well. All right, and then come down into child's pose. Take your knees wherever you want. Put any angle in your pelvis that feels good to your body. All right, letting your quads stretch open a little bit. Feel the deep compression in your hips. Just let your legs relax. Come up and come onto our back. Right, so first, we'll do this passively with a block, a bridge pose on a block, and then we're going to do it actively. So first, just put your pelvis up on a block, any height that you want to be. So you just kind of get used to the idea of opening up the pelvis in this way. We're going to come back to this with straight legs in this position in a moment. But for right now, just sense into what this feels like. And then we're going to ground into our shoulders, roll onto the tops of your shoulders. We're going to pick the hips up off of that low block, climb into a full bridge pose. If you want, you can put the block in between your legs, but I would just see what it feels like to ground the four corners of your feet and feel a full bridge. Draw your heels a little bit toward your chest so you feel that sense of your glutes and your hamstrings engaging fully. Press your feet into the ground. Big open breathing. And then come back down. Rest on the block again. And this time we can either take one leg straight at a time or both legs straight at a time, heels down onto the ground. So you decide what your back's feeling like today. And I like to stretch my arms overhead as well. It's just a subtle little lengthening in the body. And experiment if you're doing two legs or one leg. Just make sure you have time if you're doing one leg at a time, so you switch. And experiment with having your feet hip width apart, having your feet a little wider than hips. Just see what feels good. Breathe well. And then put your feet back down onto the ground. Adjust your pelvis so that you can draw your knees toward your chest with a little bit of traction of that block underneath you. Relax your hips. Let's come to a happy baby like this. So deep compression in the hip joints, a lot of opening in the back. And then lift the legs straight up in the air. And all those squats and the standing poses, just let them drain out of your legs now. Feel all the excess fluids, lactic acid, lymph, everything moving from your feet down into your torso to be processed
by your internal organs. And so really sense that river flowing with gravity, giving a lot of ease to your cardiovascular system, your lymphatic system. Notice if your legs are shaking at all. Always remember, shaking is your body's applaud. You're clapping for yourself for your good hard work. Shaking also is a really good, tremoring is a really good release for the nervous system as well. Just like the shaking and the bilateral movements, tremoring is another, trauma release move that we can do when we're trying to relinquish stress states in the body. All right, let's go ahead and relax your feet down onto the ground. Pick your pelvis up. Arms out to the side. Let's windshield wiper our knees left and right again. Nice and easy, nice and gentle. All right, we're gonna lift the hips, scoot them over to the right. Bring the knees up, drop them to the left for a twist here. Open up your spine, turn your head. How's your breathing? Now see what it feels like to keep the knees together. Straighten the top leg. Grab onto your toe or your pants or your calf or somewhere to keep your legs straight. So the knees are staying together. Drop the right hip and let it release away from the shoulders. Turn your head to the right. Release that. Come back to center. Shift your hips over to the left. Knees come up and drop to the right. Turn your head to the left. Open up your left arm. Hang on to your knees with your hands so that you're feeling nice and secure so you can melt your body in the twist. Breathe deeply. Exhale fully. And then straighten that top leg if it feels nice. Grab your toe or your pants or your calf or behind your knee, wherever you want to touch. Knees stay together, the bottom leg, the knee is bent. Root your left hip away from the shoulder. Keep turning your head. Notice, when we do these deep stretches on one side and then the other, keep paying attention to how the two sides feel compared to each other. And then come back round again onto your back, feet on the floor, rest here for a moment. All right, so we're gonna roll to our right side. Let's just stretch the left quad again. Grab onto your left foot, stretch back. You can put a block under your head or your arm. Open up the quad here, breathing well. Back to center, and let's move over to the other side. Roll to your left, support your head, grab your right foot, hug it close to your pelvis, and then move your tailbone toward your knee, lift your pubic bone toward your navel, stretch the femur bone out of the socket, and lengthen it back. Release that. Let's roll to our side. The last pose we'll do before Shavasana is pigeon pose. Now, of course, you can do any variation of an externally rotated hip stretch. So reverse pigeon pose, you could be on your back and cross one thigh over the other thigh and draw your knees toward your chest. You can do fire log. I mean, there's lots of choices here. I'm going to do pigeon pose. And then remember to have support for your head. Let's start with our right leg. Bring it forward. Your heel can be close to your pubic bone, or you can bring it further out, kind of change the angle of the stretch. I have my sit bone, my front leg sit bone, and my back thigh resting on the blanket, so I have support underneath me. Yet another thing that helps the nervous system discharge stress is when we feel physically supported. So if you're hanging in space, your nervous system will not rest. Open up through your spine and eventually find your way coming forward. And just like we don't want our hip hanging in space, we also don't want our head hanging in space. So let your head rest on a block or on your fists or wherever you want to be. Once you get here, organize yourself. Make sure your pelvis is square. Widen your sit bones a little bit. Check in with that back straight leg. Make sure the center of your kneecap is on the floor and that your foot isn't sickling in. See if you can keep that straight line. Lengthen through your spine. Melt through your skull. And find yourself breathing well. If you're in any other pose, most of the same principles apply. Let your exhales move. Let your jaw relax. Soften your face. If you're ready, switch sides however you like to switch sides. Sometimes I like to sit for a moment on that blanket and just notice how are my hips doing. Right now my hips are feeling a lot more free than they did when I started this practice, so I'm hoping you're feeling the same. Let's move to the second side. All right, so extend your spine, widen your pelvis, widen your sit bones, squaring the hips, making sure you're in a good place where your joints feel happy and healthy. You want to have a deep stretch, but not an overwhelming stretch. You don't want to have the feeling that you're trying to guard yourself from the stretch. So take your edge off. So we want there to be peace in the body, ease in the body. Check in with that back leg. Make sure your kneecap's on the ground. Your foot's not sickling. You can curl your toe under or lay it flat, whichever feels easeful. Melt through your skull, your jaw, your tongue. Full breaths. And if the hips happen to be where you store tension, stress, strain, what can you do here? Is there a breath that can help you to surrender and let go? Another common place to hold a lot of tension is your neck and shoulders. So notice them in this position. Are you supported enough to release? Another common place for tension is in the jaw and in the tongue. See if you can melt through your palates and your tongue. Another common place for tension is the skull itself. Relax. Sometimes we hold tension in our hands or in our feet. Are they melting? Sometimes we hold tension in our diaphragm. Is it spacious and mobile? Okay, let's find our way out of this pose when you're ready. And as we come into Shavasana, you might need a little something to ask your body, do you need a little something? And I'm going to build a little bridge for my hips to have my knees bent. So I'm going to have two blocks that are making a long train and then a blanket on top of them so that I have some good support underneath my legs, under my knees, so that my hips can just feel a sense of melting, where they're not strained in extension or too much flexion, just a nice neutral place. And then remember things like warmth and not having bright lights on you. Remember to not have things distracting your sense of touch. So if your props are touching you, push them away. And once you have some comfort and ease in your position and in your senses, let your body drop and melt. Notice if there's a lot of zinging around your hips, if there's, if you've woken up a lot in that area of your body. And just see what you can do to feel the ripples of the pond dissipate out. If there's any harboring of tensions, consciously drop. And if you feel like the support is hindering you, then take it away. Everybody's different with what they need. Melt your whole body, your head, your spine, your pelvis, your legs, shoulders, your arms. Let your breath be steady and easeful. deepen our breathing. Full and deep. Start to create a little movement in the body. Maybe it's some ankle rolls or some wrist rolls or finger movements, or rubbing your thumbs across your fingertips, or turning your head from side to side. So many little possibilities. Usually feeling a big stretch and a reach in the body. And bring your knees in and have a little bit of rocking. Remember, you can employ any of these tools. It doesn't have to be a full hour yoga practice to employ any of these self-care tools that you know. Roll over onto your side. Take your time on your side before sitting up so that you kind of harvest and gather. And as you come upright, and as you find yourself coming to a seated posture, notice how a little support underneath you, and notice if your sitting is a little bit more comfortable. Notice if you have some fatigue or strong sensations still in your hips. Notice the quality of your breathing, quality of your mind, the openness of your heart. All the subtle little gifts of our practice, not just the big gift of cultivating a deep sense of presence and resilience. Let's bring our hands together. Offer your practice and the ways you cultivate self-care for yourself. Offer those gifts to the world or to one specific person. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.